Chromosomes. Little strands of nucleic acids and proteins are the fundamental genetic instructions that tell us who we are at birth. Most people are born with 46 chromosomes, but each year in the United States, about 6,000 people are born with an extra chromosome, making them a person with Down syndrome. If you've ever encountered someone with Down syndrome, you know that they are some of the kindest, most joyful people you will ever meet. They truly have something extra. My name is Lisa Nichols, and I have spent the last 24 years as both the CEO of Technology Partners and as the mother to Allie. Allie has something extra in every sense of the word. I have been blessed to be by her side as she impacts everyone she meets. Through these two important roles as CEO and mother to Allie, I have witnessed countless life lessons that have fundamentally changed the way I look at the world. While you may not have an extra chromosome, every leader has something extra that defines who you are. Join me as I explore the something extra in leaders from all walks of life and discover how that difference in each of them has made a difference in their companies, their families, their communities, and in themselves. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from Technology Partners and the Something Extra podcast team. It's been an exciting year of episodes, and as I reflect on all the amazing guests we've had, I thought it would be fun to have the team pick out a few of their favorite moments so we could share them with you. Sit back, enjoy, and thank you for listening and your continued support.
People pulling us up in the organization or opening doors is just enormous, and I want to do this every week for people, is open doors. So then about a year later, my next boss said, I want to give you some opportunities in the media. So you're going to get a call from Cranes. And I said, okay, I don't know what that means. Well, then I got nominated for 40 Under 40 Top Rising Business Stars. And that was because someone cared enough to create that opportunity.
Right.
Open the door. Right. And so you get those breaks, and then later on in your career, hopefully not too much later, you want to give other people those breaks too.
Yes, and you and I have talked about this, and we've talked about just the importance of having mentors in your career, being a mentor to others, having sponsors. You know, how important is that? How do you go about? And I'll often have people say, well, how do I even find a mentor? How do I find someone? So can you just talk a little bit about that and your own experience and how that's played out for you?
I think the first thing is thinking about what problem am I trying to solve? Be a little more specific than you think. Or what opportunity am I trying to create? Then the second step would be who has already done that really well? Because then you have a legitimate business reason to say, look, I know, Lisa, you're really good at fill in the blank, recruiting great talent or growing a business and scaling a business or whatever the opportunity or the challenge is. And you're going to them starting with something that is A, their strength and proven, and B, something specific, as opposed to just walking in and saying, will you be my mentor? It's kind of like getting a marriage proposal. It sounds a little all-encompassing.
Right, exactly.
So that would be the piece on, I think situational mentoring is just fine. The other piece of it that I'm sure some of your other speakers on the podcast have probably mentioned is to take the preparation seriously and be proactive. Don't expect the mentor to be calling you on a whatever the basis is. And just be clear and upfront about, may I call you in the future? It may be once or twice a year.
Right.
On a quarterly
basis.
Another opportunity or challenge that I'd like your help with. And then the third thing is I'd say, who else would you recommend could give me insight or perspective? Because guess what? You just got a referral to another really cool person.
Absolutely.
It's going to be valuable, probably not just in your business, but in your life.
That's awesome advice. I love that. And so really the onus is on the mentee. Absolutely. To be specific. And I love what you said, Jennifer. Situational mentoring is okay. So for someone who may be considering being a mentor, it's not a lifetime commitment necessarily. It may be for a season, and it may be for a particular situation. Well, talk to me a little bit, because you are in predominantly a male-dominated profession. So how has that worked for you, and how have you navigated that whole process? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I'll start with just a funny story. I told this at my son's career fair, and he said to me, "Gosh, I never heard that story, Mom. I didn't know you went through that." But I think it illustrates how do we further our principles and beliefs, and then also further relationships without alienating people. So poignant moments will happen in your career and in your life where it's really important to decide how to react or respond, because we want to preserve the relationships and not offend people, but at the same time, we don't want to sacrifice our principles. So I was introduced as the new leader in South Carolina for a business a number of years ago, and right after the introduction, walking out of the conference room, I was walking ahead on a narrow hallway, and one of the top people in the new business threw a quarter ahead of me. And everyone sort of paused to wait to see what I would do. And he was intending that I would, bend down and pick it up in front of everyone, and he would get a ha-ha. So I think God put this in my midst, because I'm not sure I'd be quick enough to think of it on my own. But I turned around and I said, "John, if you want me to bend down, it has to be a heck of a lot more than a quarter." And then I smiled and laughed, and I said, But I got the principle across, and he knew I had a sense of humor, and we built the relationship, and he's a dear friend to them. And so everyone else saw that, she cares about both, what she believes in, but also the relationship for the long term.
Yeah.
So that's sort of an introductory story. But on women in a male-dominated industry, I look at it this way: diversity is a fact. Those are numbers we can measure. But inclusion is a choice, and I'm really big on choices in life, because the sum of our choices become our habits, our character, and ultimately, I think, our destiny. So it's a decision to include someone or not in anything, in a project, in a conversation, in a social event, so we can control that inclusion. And I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders to make sure that we're including people for opportunities. Because ultimately, what do we all want from that? We want a feeling of belonging. And we know the feeling when it happens, when we feel like we belong or not. The other side of that coin that I would encourage our listeners to is that I've always tried to do, especially as I've moved to new cities and things like that, is it's incumbent upon us to make other people comfortable. So it's incumbent upon me to make you, Lisa, comfortable with me, even though I maybe have never been in your shoes, in your industry, lived in the same place, whether I'm a man or a woman or young or old or racial differences or whatever else. But there's always a way to bridge making someone else comfortable with us. So it's the two sides of the coin. It's pull up for inclusion and also step forward to make other people comfortable with you.
That's great advice.
We had found that when we did an acquisition, if we did not have a leader who understood our way, we had a way that we did things. I tell people, I don't really describe it as good or bad, but it was discernible. We had a method to the way that we did things based on the way that we thought about things.
Sure.
And it was well ingrained in our leadership group. The reason that I think that was beneficial is because when we acquired companies that were large, had their own cultures, had their own histories, their own idea of success, one of the things that aided the integration or consolidation into the larger healthcare group was you needed leaders who were very capable of communicating what the way was. And while that inevitably with businesses leads to this way is not the way that we had, my experience is there was a courage in doing that because you quickly got people to a point where they could determine, okay, we understand what the landscape is. And most of the time people would opt in, and they understood relatively quickly what the new ground rules were, and they could begin to adapt to that.
Right.
Adapt is the word, which I think people generally are pretty hardy and capable about doing that. A lot of times when they're left without clarity about what the ground rules are, then they struggle and there's confusion, and that leads to fear and other things and struggle. Right. Sometimes people, of course, would opt out, but it generally happens sooner rather than later, and overall, that method helped to get the businesses to a point where beyond some of the turbulence and disruption of the acquisition, you could begin to move forward in this new landscape. It was around that premise that, Rich and Kevin asked me about coming here. Because today, one of the things, Lisa, I told you that I really feel is a secret ingredient is about encourage. I'll just tell you a quick story if I can.
Oh, please do.
It's a story I've shared many times, and this is a good intersection. The story that I've told many times is that it was around July, during the middle of this diligence process to acquire Mallinckrodt, that Rich and Kevin sat down with me and conveyed this idea that they wanted me to be a part of the acquisition, to consider coming to St. Louis. And I remember I said to them, well, there are 3 businesses there. Each of the 3 divisions is about $1 billion. They're very different. 2 of the 3 businesses were on the drug side of the Food and Drug Administration, and only 1 was on the device side. The device side was really the piece that we knew as a healthcare company.
Right.
And I said to them, which of the 3 businesses, are you considering me going into as the Tyco healthcare person? And they looked at me and they said, we haven't decided yet. We really don't know any more about those businesses than you do, Mark, but we know you. And the reason I share that story is, and I've shared it many, many times in my coaching career after I left Tyco in 2006, I had this coaching practice, Lisa, where you and I first met.
That's right.
I worked with senior leaders, oftentimes in private companies, for about a decade. And oftentimes I would share with them, the thing that story conveys is there was something other than subject matter experience that they placed a premium on in leadership. They recognized that they didn't know the business, and I didn't know the business, but there were attributes and some trust that was built up about me, and they were willing to have the courage to move on that and send me out and let some of those other attributes hopefully begin to take root over time.
Right.
Correct. And
I can only surmise what some of those things are, Mark. I mean, with you, I think there's probably a curiosity, a continuous learning. Dr. Townsend, I have one of your books with me today, Leading from Your Gut. And in there you talk about leaders really it's about being a better person, right?
Yes.
Can make you a better leader. Can you talk a little bit about that and talk about the observant ego?
Boy, you remember the technical stuff.
I do.
Yeah. Well,
I'm a student.
Have you ever been around a person who was not aware of the train wrecks they cause in their life? And, there's people around them, there's these bodies and these carcasses, and they're going, what went wrong? They have no observing ego.
Right.
We're supposed to be able to scrutinize ourselves and say, the team meeting just happened. How did I do? Could I have done something better? So a good leader has a very strong observing ego. They're always sort of like managing, how's my impact on my company for good or for worse.
Right.
That's how they change. The book came from all my studies in the brain and how it comes down to 2 things, Lisa, that make great leaders. One is that we have to be rational, understand objective reality, numbers, KPIs, EBITDA. You've got to understand that and to be a logical, rational person. But it doesn't stop there, because we have not only what's called a left brain, we have a right brain. And that's that intuitive, creative, passionate part. And leaders tend to kind of spend more time on the rational, objective part, which you kind of have to. But the book's about how the great leaders, the historical leaders, are really good with ration and logic and numbers, but really good with people skills and emotions as well. And that's why I talk about in the book, don't go into leadership with half a brain. Go in with a whole brain.
Go in there with a whole brain. That's wonderful. Well, can you dig into that? Because it's almost like self-awareness too,
Yes.
right? So there are some specific things that you look at. You look at how you are, affecting other people. Can you talk, if someone was trying to develop that skill more, what would you tell them? And what are some of the things that they could do to really develop that
First
skill?
and foremost, number 2 is not even close, is you've got to get around some honest people and say,
Great advice.
I'm not sure what my impact is on the company, and don't give me smoke and mirrors and tell me I'm the next whoever. Tell me really how I'm doing, and if we walk out of the room and you've told me nothing but how great I am, this doesn't work. I need that piece that says, sometimes you don't listen, or sometimes you make excuses, or sometimes you get sort of too hard on people, or sometimes you're chaotic and you're not really structured. And so get around somebody who can give you that feedback in a nice way, but direct, and that will, more than anything else I could say on this podcast, Lisa, that will build up an observing ego in you, because you begin listening to it and going, I didn't see that. You're right. I see that. And it's building up memories in your brain that when that person leaves, you're doing that function for yourself. You become a self-scrutinizing person if you're around other scrutinizing people.
I do believe that is so important, Dr. Townsend, and I kind of call it your blind spots.
It is your blind spots.
We have blind spots, don't we? And we don't even realize maybe how we're coming across to other people or how we're affecting other people with our words. Does that resonate with you? I mean, I think we have blind spots, and we need those people.
As a psychologist, when a board asks me to come in and work with a leader, the first thing I'll do is I'll find out how self-aware they are. And the ones that are saying, well, everything's great, people are marvelous, I'll kind of go, is there anything else? And if they don't, I know they have blind spots they're not looking at. And it's so important. It can actually, and you don't want to be negative, but you do want to be realistic, Lisa. It can tank your career and your company if you don't handle attitude problems and that behavior problems. Blind spots are a big deal. My theory about this is that if you look at the abbreviation for blind spots, it's BS, and you don't want BS in your company. So
That's right. So to have these people that are going to speak truth into your life like this requires some humility, doesn't it, on the leader's part? And sometimes, it doesn't probably always feel good when somebody says, hey, this is a way that you come across. You come across brazen or whatever the case may be. But it requires humility on the leader's part.
Yeah, and I don't go for my physical with my doctor to feel good either. But I know if I don't, there's going to be bad things happening.
Right.
I'll feel really bad. So it's kind of the surgery of growth. Mature people, let me just kind of make it harder. It's not even where you're aware of them saying things to you. We have to seek them out. We have to find out who is honest and perceptive and cares about me in the company, who will shoot straight with me. We have to find them and vet them. We don't kind of wait for it to come. The great ones are always saying, hey, how am I doing? Tell me, shoot straight with me. There's a great statement about the last 10%. Where they say, don't leave a meeting until somebody's had that last 10% of what really is the problem here. Is there any problem? It might be a small thing like the drapes are wrong or maybe whatever. It could be a big thing like there was an elephant in the rug and nobody talked about it. That's what the great leaders do.
Yeah, I love that. So there is a story I remember years ago sitting under your tutelage, and there is a story that I have never forgotten, and I'll be 90 years old, hopefully, and still haven't forgotten this particular story. But you were talking about sometimes that there's people in your life, it can be a child, it can be a family member, it can be an employee, and that person is really struggling. And so just talk about, it's the well story. And I want you to tell our listening audience the well story.
Well, yeah, I remember when I was speaking and you and I were talking, and I think you told me you were impacted. It was really, really fun. The gist of it, Lisa, is that my family and like a lot of people have other favorite families love to do stuff with, just people you get along with, and the kids like each other and all that. So we would go on vacations together. It's several families like this. And just a great time. And one of the gals, not my kids, but somebody else's kids, she came up to me and she said, I need to talk to you. And I said, sure, what's going on? She goes, well, I got some problems. I said, I'm sorry. I said, what are they? She says, well, I'm a senior in college with no job prospects. I'm a communications major, and it's kind of hard to get a job. And I'm going to be on the street in 5 months. I'm kind of panicked. I said, well, I'm really sorry. That's hard. She goes, well, there's something else. I said, what's there something else? She says, Spencer and I broke up. And I said, oh, my gosh, I love Spencer. We took him out to dinner. We loved the guy. We thought he was the one. I can't believe this. Our favorite guy. What happened? She goes, well, long story. It's over. And I'm just kind of a mess. And I thought he was the one, too. And I'm like, you've got a couple of bad hits here. Let's call her Erin. And she goes, well, there's something else. And I said, what else? And she says, I'm not even sure what my purpose in life is anymore. I don't even know where I belong. And I said, okay, I'm really sorry. I said, I love you, known you all your life. What can I do to help? And she says, fix my mother. And Lisa, I thought, how do we get from life problems to fix my mother? I said, what? She goes, well, let me tell you what happens. Whenever I tell her about this, she looks at me and she goes, you're a strong person, and you're going to make it, and go for it. And then she looks at me, and I said, that's kind of lame. She goes, I know, it's really lame, and so I ignore her. I said, okay, I got it. So how's your dad doing? Oh, Dad and I talk all the time. I said, okay, it's not a parent problem. I'm doing my psychologist hat, right? Okay, it's a mom problem. So I grab Mom, and when you're ever doing these talks, you got to be private. And you're on vacation with somebody, it's one of three places. It's either the backyard where the swing is, where you can be alone, or the third bedroom upstairs where you're by yourself, or the kitchen where everybody's eating. I thought about it. We went to the backyard with the swing. I said, we got to talk about your daughter. And she said, yeah, what's up? I said, well, she's got job problems and boyfriend problems and purpose problems. And she goes, I know. And I said, and she says that when she tells you about it, that you tell her that she's strong and smart and she'll make it. She goes, I know. And I said, and she tells me that it doesn't help her. She goes, I know. I'll never forget. She goes, fix my daughter. Okay, so now I'm stuck in the two places.
Right.
So I said, what do I have to fix? She goes, well, I have the talent and gift for encouragement and advice, and I'm a good encouraging advisor. I said, you're great. She goes, so fix her so she can take these nuggets of advice and encouragement and put them in, you're a brain guy, put them in her brain with a hammer so that she feels better. It doesn't quite work like that. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, let me use a metaphor. Your daughter fell down a well, a 40-foot well, and it's dark and damp, and it's the well of no boyfriend and no job and no purpose, and it's awful and sad, and she's overwhelmed, and she's in a bad place, and she's at the bottom as well, doesn't even know what to do. And you lean over at the top of the well because you love her, and you're a leader, and you're a mom, and you look down at her, and where you are, the sun is shining, and, the birds are chirping and all this, and you lean over and say, honey, you're smart, and you're a good person, you'll make it. Come on up, like Bob Barker, come on up. And she doesn't. Now, let me tell you what else happens, though. Your husband, good friend of mine, he looks at his daughter, y'all's daughter, and he looks over the well, and he jumps in 40 feet down, lands 40 feet down, and what he does when he lands is he picks up his daughter, and he says, it's really scary, and it's overwhelming, and you don't even know what's up or down, and it's dark, and it's confusing. And I've got you. I've got you, and I'm going to get you here, and we're going to stay here till you're ready to get out. And that's why she listens to him and not you. And the mom is a smart person. She's no fool. She said, you're telling me to jump in the well. And I said, yes, I am. And she said, it's so hard for me. I'd rather encourage and give advice. I said, you have a gift, but your sequence is just wrong. Nobody can give encouragement advice that's useful until they've been in the well with somebody. We don't listen to people who don't get us. Mm-hmm. You don't have to spend your whole time there. But if you just be empathetic and draw her out about how hard it is, she's going to listen to your great advice. But I have been advised by people that didn't give a rip how I felt, and I didn't use their advice. We just are that way. Mm-hmm. So I checked in almost 6 weeks later. The young lady says, Mom and I are talking all the time, and Mom said it. We're fine. So that was the whole message is every leader needs to learn how to get in the well, but then the postscript is, but every leader needs to ask before, who am I inviting to my well? Because we don't do it. We provide, guide, lead, mentor, develop people. We have to have somebody in our well as well. That's what the story was about.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more of the best of Something Extra. As a business leader, you know that keeping a solid first impression with your potential clients, customers, and talent is vital to reaching your organization's goals. If you haven't optimized your website, or if you don't even have a website, you're missing an opportunity to shape your first impression so that it shows your brand in the best possible light. If you're thinking about revolutionizing your website, let's talk. Our team at Technology Partners is ready to help you reshape your online presence. Go to tpi.co/websites and start your journey today. Welcome back. Our team picked their favorite Something Extras from the amazing leaders that we've had on the show. I hope you enjoy it.
So talk to us a little bit. What do you believe is the something extra that every leader needs?
One, I think that I have learned is empathy, really understanding that you see people for who they are and you help push them to their potential and their maximum. Like, it's coaching. And I think every great leader is a coach. You are motivating, you are pushing, you are figuring out how to pull someone from the bottom to the top because you want everyone on your team to be able to operate to their maximum
at that level potential.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And at first, people always be like, Khalia, do you play? Do you coach? And I'm like, no. I'll be offended when people stop asking me if I play because it means I no longer look athletic. But now I embrace it. I don't coach my team. I'm solely the owner and general manager, but I am a coach. And I think every great leader should be. And every great leader should be intentional with their words. What are you wanting to accomplish?
Words are so important.
Words
do matter, don't they,
Words
Khalia?
do matter.
They do.
They do. And I think being intentional with how you encourage and how you give constructive criticism. It's really easy for a lot of people to tear people down, right? We got that part. You can tell someone what they're not good at, what they can't accomplish, but how do you build them up? That's the key component that will always separate the good from the great.
Well, and then sometimes I think the component is, have you shown that that person that you truly, truly care about them as a person.
Yes.
It's not, I'm not trying to tear you down to make myself look better.
Yep.
It's because I really care. And to your point before, you want people to reach their maximum potential. We all need mirrors. I said something to somebody yesterday. I said, I want some feedback, and I don't want you to tell me, oh, it was great. I want you to tell me the good, bad, and the ugly, because you know what? I am a person. I want to continue to grow. I want to continue, So you need those people in your life that love you and care for you, but they're going to tell you the truth. Because you need to know the truth.
110%. And that's why I am so thankful. I have a group of best friends. I have had some terrible ideas along the way. And they're like, Khalia, that's not the way to go.
Not a good idea.
And without those people who are willing to be honest with you, which also creates some vulnerability for them.
Oh, yes.
As well as vulnerability for us to be able to take it and receive that information and not taking it as just you're being a Debbie Downer, or you're trying to hurt me in a way. You're trying to make me better. And I think that's the side that it's tough. You have to swallow that a little bit in your gut. No one likes hearing bad stuff.
Nobody likes hearing that.
But you're appreciative when you know it's coming from the right place.
I agree. Let's talk about, what do you think, and it can be more than one thing, Scott. So what do you believe is the something extra that every leader needs?
The first that comes to mind, especially off of our halftime conversation, is rest.
And that is a tough one, isn't it?
It can be.
Yes.
When you're wired to go, when it's hard to shut your mind off, rest is hard to find. And it's easy to complain about not having time to do it, and it's hard to find. But as a leader, it's important for you to schedule it. And one of the things that I learned was through this halftime sabbatical, just taking that time to really disconnect and reflect, was I didn't know at what speed I was running. That's not to say I didn't think I knew, because I thought I knew, but I was wrong. And I think there's so many people out there with great ideas, with amazing stamina, that are not aware of the pace they're running, the carnage they're leaving, how hard they are to keep up with, and how sometimes the standards for excellence that they have for themselves are not attainable consistently by everyone in the company. And that is not to say that a leader thinks they're better than everyone else. Everyone is gifted in different ways.
Right.
But oftentimes the stamina that a leader has, the vision that a leader has, the ideas that a leader has, the pace that a leader has is the leader's. And to be a true leader, to be the shepherd, sometimes you got to leave the 99 to go get the one. So rest and reflection, it's something extra that I think we all need.
Yeah, great words of advice. Have you ever seen something extra missing, possibly in yourself or a colleague or former boss? You don't have to name drop on that one.
Well, Lisa, I want to tell you a little bit of a story about myself at the risk of exposing myself, talk about a weakness that I've learned about myself that I hope I've turned around a little bit.
Right.
I recognized in myself as I was working at MasterCard and working on things to help change our world and grow our company and do things that, I like to be an idea person, and I would think through lots of different ways that our company could grow or things that we could do. But I didn't feel like I was a very good communicator. And I didn't feel like my voice was the voice that was going to be influential at the table. So what I did was I often would do all the work myself. I would do all the thinking part myself, and I would sweat over ideas and put the meat on the bone. And then I would ask another colleague of mine, a male colleague of mine, to be the voice. And I thought to myself at the time, this is the right way. This is how this idea is actually going to get accepted and endorsed, and it's going to work. And I thought I was doing right. I thought I was doing right by the company, which perhaps arguable at the time. I learned over time. I started seeing, interesting. One, that person was getting all the credit for the
They
ideas.
were getting the credit for your idea.
They were getting all the credit for the ideas. They weren't really party to the thinking process and the creation process. But probably more importantly, I learned about myself. Why am I doing that? Why am I thinking somebody else's voice is going to be so much more influential? I abandoned that tactic, and I really let my own voice be heard. And I worked on my communication style, and I got over the probably inferiority complex that I had, some sort of mental block that I had about myself, and I just became my own voice. And I have to endorse that thinking. I think it is a much healthier way of thinking. And now it is something that I really tell girls, actually. One of the secrets to success, I feel like, is to make sure that your voice is heard. If you have ideas, put them on the table. If you have questions, put them on the table. Don't be the quiet person in the back of the room. Participate and engage, because I do think it's true in life that if you're not offering up ideas, if you're not seen as contributing to the forward thinking, to the forward progress of the company, you're going to be left behind. Mm-hmm. So I learned in my life something that was missing from me, and I made that change. And now I pivoted, and I try to share that story with girls as something that they should be doing, and they should let their voice be heard.
That is awesome advice.
This has been so much fun for our team to put together. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for supporting the podcast and listening. We'll have more amazing episodes in 2020.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc., 2019. For show notes or to reach Lisa, visit tpi.co/podcast. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you listen.